Oh, you're here. Good. I've got another betrayal story for you. Sit down. I came home expecting family laughter, maybe a late dinner waiting. Instead, I found silence and a note that tore my world apart. My name is David Miller. I'm 36, a project manager for a mid-sized company. And if you asked me a month before this night, I would have said my life was solid. I had a 7-year-old daughter named Lily who thought I hung the moon, and a wife, Rachel, who I believe stood by me through thick and thin. I worked long hours, sure, but it was for us, for the mortgage, for Lily's future, for that little dream of stability we both said we wanted. Looking back, I see the cracks. Rachel's sharp sighs when I said I had to stay late. The way she stopped leaving leftovers on the stove and started locking her phone screen when I walked by. The late-night errands that she never used to run. I noticed, but I told myself it was stress or maybe my imagination. When you trust someone, you don't automatically jump to betrayal. You bend over backward to explain away the warning signs. That night, I pulled into the driveway past 9. My truck headlights swept across the garage, where Rachel's car was gone. Lily's pink bike, the one I just tightened the training wheels on, leaned against the sidewall. I thought nothing of it. Maybe Rachel had taken Lily for ice cream to stall bedtime. I smiled at the idea, but when I stepped inside, the smile died. The house was dark, too dark. Normally, Lily's drawings littered the coffee table, her crayons rolling onto the carpet, and Rachel would be curled up on the couch pretending not to wait up for me. That night, the table was bare. The couch was empty. My gut clenched. I headed for the kitchen, flicking on lights as I went, calling Rachel's name. No answer. The fridge was closed. No smells of dinner hanging in the air. Then I saw it, a folded piece of paper sitting alone on the counter, my name on the front. I picked it up, already cold before I even opened it. Don't look for us. This is for the best. Her handwriting, her words. My knees almost gave out right there. At first, denial rushed in like a flood. Maybe she was angry, tried to scare me, trying to make me beg. Rachel could be dramatic. This had to be another one of her games. I tore through the house, room by room, calling for Lily. Her bed was stripped bare, no stuffed animals in sight. The closet stood empty, hangers rattling where her favorite dresses used to hang. Rachel hadn't stormed off. She'd packed. She'd planned this. Rachel, I shouted, stumbling into the yard, scanning the street like she might step out from the shadows. Neighbors' windows glowed, but no one came outside. My chest burned, heart hammering so loud it drowned the silence. I sprinted next door, banged on Mr. and Mrs. Allen's door like a madman. When Mr. Allen cracked it open, bleary-eyed, I asked if he'd seen Rachel, if Lily had come over. He shook his head, looking at me like I was crazy. I ran back home, dialing her phone with shaking hands. Straight to voicemail. Again and again, each unanswered call was a nail hammered deeper into the coffin of denial. By midnight, I was pacing the kitchen, the note lying open like a scar I couldn't close. I called the police. When Officer Jennings arrived, his cruiser lights spilling across my lawn, I felt relief. Finally, someone with authority could make sense of this. I shoved a note at him, told him she'd taken my daughter, that I didn't know where. He read it, lips pressed tight, then handed it back with a sigh. "Mr. Miller," he said, his tone calm but heavy, "unless there's a custody order in place, what your wife did isn't considered a crime. She's Lily's mother. She has the same rights you do." I stared at him, stunned. "She disappeared with my kid. That's not a crime." He shook his head. "Not under the law. Now, if she contacts you, keep records. If you suspect danger to the child, call us. But as it stands, this is a family court matter, not criminal." His words hit harder than the note. My wife had vanished with my daughter, and the law said it was her right. The house felt like it was closing in, the walls pressing me into the ground. Jennings gave me a card, told me to talk to a lawyer, and drove away. The red and blue lights faded into darkness, leaving me standing in the doorway with nothing but the note clutched in my fist. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at Lily's empty chair, listening to a silence so thick it roared in my ears. I kept calling Rachel's phone, hoping for her voice, for any proof this wasn't real. Nothing. Just voicemail. Just absence. I trusted her completely. And in one night, she'd turned that trust into a weapon, leaving me powerless in my own home. And I knew this was only the beginning. By morning, I hadn't slept. My hands shook as I dialed every number I knew. Hers, her family's, even old friends. Nobody had answers. Each voicemail I left grew shorter, more frantic, until all I could manage was, "Please, just tell me where she is." Rachel's parents picked up on the third try. Her mother's voice was flat, rehearsed almost like she'd been waiting for my call. "David, we don't know where she is," she said. "But can you blame her? You've been working all the time. She probably just needed space." I clenched the phone so tight my knuckles went white. Space? She took our daughter. That's not space, that's kidnapping. Her father cut in then, his tone sharper. "Don't throw words like that around. Rachel's a good mother. Maybe if you'd been home more instead of living at that job, she wouldn't have felt pushed away." The word stung. It was the same argument Rachel had thrown at me, softened by years of repetition, but never gone. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. My own in-laws, people who'd once thanked me for providing, for being solid, now made me the villain. By noon, I was at my brother Mark's house. He opened the door in gym shorts, sipping coffee like it was any other Sunday. When I told him Rachel had left with Lily, his brow furrowed, but his reaction wasn't the outrage I'd expected. "Look, Dave," he said, motioning me inside, "don't make this worse. She'll come back when she cools off. Chasing her will just push her further away." She left a note saying not to look for them. I snapped, "You think this is some tantrum?" "She's gone, Mark. Really gone." He sighed, scratching the back of his neck. "Then maybe you let her go. Fighting will tear you apart. And Lily, she doesn't need that." It sounded like surrender, like he was telling me to roll over and accept losing my daughter. I stormed out before I could explode. Mark meant well, but every word felt like betrayal. That evening, the first legal blow landed. My lawyer, a stocky man named Attorney Simmons, called me into his office downtown. Papers were already stacked on his desk, the ink still fresh. Rachel had filed for emergency custody in another state. "She's trying to change jurisdiction," Simmons explained, flipping through documents. "If the court there accepts it, you'll be dragged into months of back and forth just to establish who has the right to hear the case." I rubbed my temples, trying to process. She can just do that? She can try. And unfortunately, until we fight it, it buys her time. She wants you chasing her across state lines while she builds her narrative. Narrative. That word stuck with me. This wasn't about truth. It was about the story Rachel was selling. And I was the villain in it. Simmons leaned back in his chair. "This is going to be expensive, David. Custody battles drain people, even without the interstate mess. And I have to warn you, judges don't like fathers with long work hours. She'll use that against you." I left the office with a folder of paperwork that felt heavier than bricks. I thought I'd known pressure before, deadlines, layoffs, the constant grind of keeping a job afloat. But this was war. 2 days later, another hit, a letter from Rachel's attorney, demanding immediate child support. The ink might as well have been blood, because I could feel it draining me as I read. According to them, Rachel had primary care of Lily, and I was an absent parent who needed to contribute financially while custody was pending. Absent. The word made me want to put my fist through the wall. I'd worked late nights, missed dinners, but it was for Lily, for Rachel. I hadn't abandoned them. I was fighting tooth and nail, just to bring them home. But the system didn't care about my intentions. The checks had to go out. My account balance plummeted, and every dollar felt like a reward for Rachel's betrayal. I was paying her to keep my daughter from me. Nights blurred into each other. I sat awake with stacks of bills and legal notices, trying to make sense of a fight I never asked for. During the day, I played phone tag with Simmons, who tried to sound confident but never sugarcoated the truth. It would take months, maybe a year, to sort this out. In the meantime, Rachel was out there spinning lies, painting me as the father who cared more about work than his family. And the worst part, the people closest to me, her parents, even my own brother, seemed willing to believe her. The walls were closing in, and for the first time, I wonder if I'd already lost. Weeks blurred together. Every day without Lily felt heavier, and every court letter made me out to be a stranger to my own daughter. The first envelope came on a Thursday morning, thick enough to choke a mailbox. I tore it open in my kitchen, coffee still steaming on the counter. Inside, page after page of accusations. Rachel's lawyer had painted me as a ghost in my own home, neglectful, obsessed with work, emotionally unavailable. According to her, I'd abandoned my role as a father long before she left. Reading it was like watching someone rewrite my life in ink. She twisted truths until they snapped. Yes, I work late. Yes, I miss bedtime sometimes. But I was there every Saturday morning for pancakes, every Sunday at the park with Lily on my shoulders, every night tucking her in when I could. To Rachel's lawyer, none of that existed. In their story, I was a paycheck, not a parent. I slammed the papers down, my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. I wanted to call Rachel right then, scream at her for the lies, demand she face me. But Simmons's voice echoed in my head from our last meeting. Don't contact her directly. Don't give her ammunition. So instead, I called Lily. Rachel answered first. Her voice sweet like honey, but laced with poison. Say hi to your dad, sweetie. I heard shuffling, then Lily's small voice, thin and distant. Hi, Daddy. I forced cheer into my tone. Hey, Bug. How are you? Are you okay? A pause. Then, Mommy says you're busy at work. That's why you're not here. My chest clenched. No, Lily, that's not. I cut myself off, careful not to argue through her. I love you. I'm trying to see you. But her answers came like they'd been rehearsed. Short, stiff. Okay, Daddy. I love you too. Then silence, and Rachel's voice swooping back in. Time's up. The line clicked dead. I sat there staring at the phone. Numb. That wasn't my daughter talking. It was Rachel's script coming out of her mouth. The financial pressure grew heavier with every passing week. The child support checks drained my account, while Simmons's invoices stacked higher and higher. Mortgage, utilities, court filing fees. I started skipping meals, letting bills go late just to scrape enough together for the fight. One night, I spread the bills across the table and just stared. It felt like drowning in paper. My hands shook as I picked one up and then another, until I dropped them all and buried my face in my palms. That was the night I almost gave in to Mark's advice. He called earlier, voice steady as always. Dave, you're killing yourself. She's already made her choice. Maybe it's better for Lily if you stop fighting. Kids pick up on conflict. She doesn't deserve this tug of war. I'd snapped at him then, told him he didn't understand. But sitting there in the dark, surrounded by debts and silence, I wondered if he was right. What the harder I fought, the more damage I did. I didn't sleep that night. I sat awake until dawn, staring at the empty chair where Lily used to eat breakfast. Then, days later, fate cracked the door open. I ran into Monica, an old mutual friend, at the grocery store. She spotted me first, called my name, and gave me that awkward, pitying smile people give when they don't know what to say. We made small talk by the produce aisle, me gripping the cart like a lifeline. Finally, she tilted her head. I saw Rachel the other day. She seems to be doing okay. spending a lot of time with that coworker of hers. My blood froze. Coworker? Monica's eyes widened, realizing she'd said too much. Oh, I mean, just someone from her office. She mentioned him before. I shouldn't have. But I didn't hear the rest. My ears buzzed like static. A coworker. A man. Suddenly, Rachel's late nights, the locked phone, the coldness at home, they weren't random cracks. They were pieces of a puzzle I hadn't wanted to see. I left the store without even paying for groceries. Drove home in a fog. Sat in my truck in the driveway with Monica's words echoing louder and louder. Rachel hadn't just left. She hadn't just taken Lily. She'd been building a new life with someone else, while I was killing myself at work to hold up the old one. And now, she was using my daughter as leverage to cement that life. The smear campaign had a purpose. She wasn't just tearing me down. She was clearing space for someone else to take my place. That night, for the first time since she disappeared, I didn't feel powerless. I felt rage. Cold, sharp, purposeful rage. Rachel wanted to erase me, but I wasn't going to let her. That single word, coworker, lit fire in me. If she had help, if this was all part of a plan, I needed to know. I spent the night staring at my dwindling bank account, doing math I didn't want to see. Between the child support, Simmons's invoices, and late mortgage payments, I was running on fumes. But sitting there, tapping Monica's words into my phone over and over, coworker, 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 I realized I had no choice. If I didn't find proof, Rachel's lies would bury me. The next morning, I drove across town to a brick building with a faded sign, Harrington Investigations. Inside, a man in his 50s with tired eyes and a pressed shirt introduced himself as Jack Harrington. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. "You think your wife's seeing someone?" he asked, flipping open a notepad. "I don't think," I said, my jaw tight. "I know. I just need proof." Jack nodded. "Costs money. Retainer up front." I slid the envelope across the desk. Nearly every spare dollar I had left. Rent money, bill money, whatever I could scrape together. Jack tucked it away without a blink. "Give me a week," he said. That week crawled like a lifetime. Every time my phone buzzed, my chest seized, thinking it might be news. At night, I sat awake scrolling through old photos of Lily on my phone. Her gap-toothed smile, the way she used to hug my arm at bedtime. The thought of her calling someone else daddy made me sick. On the 7th day, Jack called me in. When I walked into his office, he already had a folder on the desk. "You were right," he said simply. I opened the folder. The first photo hit like a punch. Rachel, my wife, standing outside a cafe with a woman I didn't recognize at first glance. Dark hair, sharp suit, laughing like a teenager. Jack tapped the photo. Claire works at her office, not just a co-worker. Photo after photo followed. Rachel and Claire leaving hotels together at night. Receipts with both their names. Screenshots of messages Rachel had thought were hidden, but weren't. Every piece was a nail sealing the coffin of the life I thought I had. She hadn't just left because of me, or because of my hours, or because she needed space. She'd left because she'd already replaced me. For a few minutes, I couldn't breathe. My throat burned. I wanted to throw the folder across the room, punch a wall, scream until the ceiling cracked. But instead, I closed it carefully and set it down, because buried in all that devastation was something else. Determination. Rachel was never acting alone. She'd been building this escape for months, maybe longer. The smear campaign, the custody games, the sudden disappearance. It was all calculated. And if she thought I'd let her get away with it, she'd underestimated me. I took the folder straight to Simmons's office. He flipped through the photos, whistling low. Well, this changes things. "You can use this?" I asked. He leaned back in his chair, nodding. "Absolutely. Judges don't look kindly on deception, especially when it comes to hiding relationships, moving kids across state lines, and manipulating custody. if we present this right, her credibility will start to crack. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't over. A week later, I saw it happen. Courtrooms are sterile places, but that day it felt like an arena. Rachel sat across from me in a navy blazer, her lawyer whispering in her ear. She looked calm, collected, smug even, like she'd already won. Then Simmons stood. He began with small inconsistencies. Rachel's claim that she was overwhelmed and alone after I abandoned her. He asked simple questions, laid out timelines. And then, with deliberate calm, he slid one of Jack's photos onto the table. Rachel froze. Her lawyer objected. Of course, but the damage was done. Simmons didn't stop there. He added receipts, messages, every shred of proof we had. Piece by piece, the cracks showed. Rachel's voice wavered. She stumbled over her words. The judge's face stayed unreadable, but I saw it. Her story wasn't airtight anymore. For the first time since she vanished, I wasn't the one on trial. She was. Walking out of that courtroom, I didn't feel victory. Not yet, but I felt something I hadn't in months. Momentum. Rachel's lies weren't invincible. And with every step forward, I was closer to bringing Lily home. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about winning. For the first time in months, I felt the tide shift. But the fight was far from over. Rachel still had Lily in her grip. The court cracks had rattled her, but instead of backing down, she doubled her efforts. I knew at the moment I got Lily on the phone again. Rachel had agreed, reluctantly, to a supervised call after the last hearing. Her voice was clipped when she passed the phone over. "Hi, Daddy," Lily said. Her tone was wrong. Too flat, like she was reading lines off a script. "Hey, Bug," I said softly. "How's school? You doing okay?" There was a pause. Then she whispered, "Mommy says you don't care, that you don't want to see me." I felt my stomach drop. "No, Lily, that's not true. I've been trying every single day to see you. Mommy isn't." I cut myself off, swallowing hard. Fighting Rachel through my daughter wasn't an option. "Listen to me, Bug. I love you. I've never stopped fighting for you." She was quiet for a moment. Then her voice cracked. "Daddy, can you try harder?" My throat closed up. I pressed the phone to my ear, like it might close the miles between us. "I promise. I'll never stop trying." The line went silent. Then Rachel's voice cut back in. "That's enough." Click. I sat at the table with the phone still pressed against my ear, staring at nothing. That one sentence, "try harder," echoed in my head like a commandment. My little girl thought I wasn't trying hard enough because Rachel was poisoning her with lies. And I couldn't hug her, couldn't hold her, couldn't show her the truth. All I could do was keep fighting. That night, Mark came over. He must have seen me slipping, because he walked in without knocking, beer in hand, and sat down across from me. "You look like hell," he said flatly. "I feel worse," I muttered, rubbing my eyes. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Dave, I'm going to say something you don't want to hear. You're destroying yourself. You're broke. You barely sleep. And she's winning. Maybe it's time to think about whether this fight is worth it." The words hit like a slap. "Worth it? That's my daughter, Mark. How the hell could you say that?" "I'm not saying don't care," he shot back. "I'm saying maybe you need to accept you can't control this. Rachel's got the system on her side. You're bleeding yourself dry, and for what? Another court date? Another bill you can't pay?" I stood up, pacing the room. Rage buzzed in my chest, but beneath it was fear. Fear that he was right. But then I remembered Lily's voice. "Can you try harder?" I stopped pacing and looked him dead in the eye. "I don't care what it costs me. I'll burn every dollar, every hour, every ounce of strength I have, because she's my daughter. And if I don't fight, then Rachel wins. And Lily grows up thinking I abandoned her." Mark stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head. "You're going to kill yourself, Dave." "Then at least Lily will know I tried." The next morning, Simmons called. His tone carried a charge, like he'd been waiting to deliver the news. "We've got her," he said. "What do you mean?" "She enrolled Lily in a new school out of state without disclosing it. Direct violation of the standing court orders. We can hit her with contempt." I gripped the phone tighter. "You're sure?" "Positive. We got the records. Attendance, enrollment forms. Her signature's all over them. It was the break I'd been praying for. Rachel had slipped, and this time it wasn't just emotional manipulation. It was legal, tangible, something no judge could ignore. At the next hearing, Simmons laid it all out, calm, methodical, unshakable. The photos of Rachel with Claire had already weakened her credibility. But this was the nail. He presented the school documents, highlighted her failure to disclose, then tied it back to her pattern of deception. Rachel squirmed in her seat. Her lawyer objected, scrambled, tried to paint it as a misunderstanding. But the judge leaned forward, eyes sharp, and demanded full disclosure of every address, every school record, every move Rachel had made since she left. For the first time, Rachel's mask cracked. She stammered, voice rising, hands fidgeting as she tried to explain herself. But the more she talked, the deeper she dug her own grave. I sat there, silent, every muscle coiled tight. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, but inside I felt it, the shift. For months, she'd painted me as absent, unfit, disposable. Now, in front of the judge, she looked like the liar she was. When the gavel came down, the words were clear. "Mrs. Miller, you are ordered to provide full disclosure immediately. Further violations will carry severe consequences." It wasn't a victory, but it was the first time the court saw her for what she was. And in that moment, I knew the tide wasn't just shifting. It was turning. Rachel had been fighting with lies. Now I was fighting with proof. And proof doesn't break. The final hearing arrived like a storm. Months of pain, money, and sleepless nights all came down to a single day in court. My hand shook as I buttoned my shirt that morning, not from nerves, but from exhaustion. I'd given everything, my savings, my time, my sanity, to this fight, and now it would either break me or prove me right. When I walked into the courthouse, Simmons was already there, sleeves rolled, calm as ever. He gave me a short nod. "Today we finish this," he said. Rachel sat across the aisle, hair perfectly styled, navy suit pressed within an inch of its life. Claire wasn't there, of course. She'd vanished the moment her name surfaced in filings. But Rachel sat tall, her lawyer whispering in her ear, as if her lies could hold the same weight as the evidence stacked in Simmons's briefcase. The judge entered, the gavel cracked, and just like that, my entire life was on trial. Simmons started slow, building the foundation. He laid out the timeline of events, the sudden disappearance, the secret filings in another state, the attempts to sever contact. His voice was measured, never rushed, like a man stacking bricks with perfect precision. Then he dropped the weight. "Your Honor," he said, sliding a document onto the bench, "these are records showing Mrs. Miller concealed a child's school enrollment out of state, directly violating this court's standing orders." Rachel shifted in her seat, eyes flicking to her attorney. The judge's gaze sharpened. Simmons didn't stop there. He introduced the photos, Rachel and Claire, hand in hand outside hotels, laughing at cafes. He read the messages, each one dripping with contempt for me, each one revealing the affairs she tried to bury under accusations. "Mrs. Miller," Simmons said, voice steady but slicing through the room, "you testified under oath that you were overwhelmed and alone. Yet these records show you had consistent support, personal, emotional, even financial, from Ms. Claire. Why did you conceal this from the court?" Rachel's lips parted. No words came out. Her lawyer jumped in, objecting, scrambling for relevance, but the judge waved it off. Piece by piece, the facade crumbled. Every inconsistency Simmons exposed made Rachel stumble harder. At first, she denied. Then she deflected. Finally, her voice cracked. "He told me he didn't care." Rachel blurted, pointing at me with trembling hands. He was never home, never there for us. What was I supposed to do? The words hung in the air, desperate, hollow. Simmons leaned in. You were supposed to tell the truth. The courtroom went silent. The judge's gavel came down. Enough. Her voice was cool, deliberate. She turned to Rachel. This court has seen a clear pattern of deception, manipulation, and disregard for orders. You attempted to alienate this child from her father while painting yourself as a victim. It ends today. My chest tightened. The judge continued, her tone firm. Custody is restored to Mr. Miller. Mrs. Miller will have limited, supervised visitation until further review. Furthermore, Mrs. Miller is sanctioned for her violations of court orders. I didn't hear the rest. My ears rang with one phrase, over and over. Custody is restored. Rachel's face crumpled. For months, she looked untouchable, smug, always one step ahead. Now she looked small, defeated, and I didn't feel pity, not even for a second. Outside the courthouse, I stood waiting in the pickup area, my heart hammering against my ribs. Then I saw her, Lily. She spotted me first, and her little legs took off before the caseworker beside her could react. Daddy! She hit my chest like a rocket, arms wrapping tight around my neck. I lifted her up, burying my face in her hair, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I breathed. She was crying, but they were different tears. Relief, joy, release. I knew you'd come, she whispered. I knew it. I held her tighter, my own tears burning hot down my cheeks. I never stopped, Bug, not for 1 second. In that moment, every sleepless night, every bill, every fight, every moment of doubt, it all became worth it. She was back, and no one could take her from me again. Rachel tried to erase me. She tried to rewrite the story so I'd be nothing but a shadow in Lily's life. But she failed. I didn't just survive her betrayal. I won. I proved myself the father she could never erase. And as I carried Lily to the car, her arms locked around my neck, I knew this wasn't the end of the fight. Not completely. But it was the end of Rachel's control. I trusted her completely once, and she tried to turn that trust into a weapon. But in the end, I showed her, and everyone else, that betrayal doesn't win. Hey, what would you have done if the person you trusted most tried to erase you from your own child's life? Do you think I was right to fight through the courts? Or should I have walked away like my brother suggested? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories like this one, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next betrayal.